Hello and welcome. I'm Ben Paris from AnswerSource, and I'm here to talk to you about assessment design. By assessment design, I mean all of the decisions that go into making a first-class assessment. Now, part of that certainly is writing questions, but if you're starting a project, you don't just go ahead and write questions. There are other kinds of issues that you need to think about first, and let's talk about some of them. One of them is the learning objectives. Good assessments come from good learning objectives, and so we have to make sure that the learning objectives are clear. Can we even tell what they mean? Do we understand what the objective really is? It also has to be measurable in a way that is possible to be measured in the kind of assessments that we write. So for example, if the assessment were to see if you can start an entrepreneurial business, well, that would be hard to measure because we'd have to actually have you start a business and see if it worked or not. So analyzing the learning objectives is one of the important steps in assessment design. We also have to think, when we're thinking about assessment design, think about what do we know about the learners? What are their motivations? What skills can we assume that they have coming in? Do we have to do anything special about the vocabulary in order to make sure that the questions are accessible? Do we need to keep the question sizes shorter to make sure that, that they're not losing concentration? We want to make sure that we're measuring the right things, and sometimes if you include a lot of complicated vocabulary or long questions, what you wind up testing is their endurance more than their understanding of the underlying subject matter. In addition, we have to think about technology. What kind of technology is the best way to deliver this kind of assessment? Is it, a relatively straightforward paper and pencil? Sometimes that can be fine. Is it a straightforward computer test, or is there something more complicated that would be required in this case, like an adaptive test or something like that? We also want to think about how big these assessments need to be. Now, we love assessments, we write them all the time, but people don't want to spend all day testing, so we have to measure the information that we're getting from these assessments versus the amount of time people are putting into them. So how often are we testing and how big are the assessments? These go into how we design any kind of assessment program. We also want to think about the question types that we're using. Now, multiple choice questions are generally the most popular. They can be useful in all kinds of circumstances, but if you really want to measure, say, their creative skills, then you may need something open-ended. If you can just spot the one answer choice out of 5, that's not really a creative task. So these are the kind of things that we think about when it comes to assessment design. We still have to write good questions, but these are the kinds of framework issues that can make a good assessment even better.